Hello everyone, Jul here. After discussing about some of the best turn-based RPGs that have the most satisfying combat, I realized some of these games are a classic game, which makes me think that, hey, maybe it's a perfect time for us to discuss about some of the best classic turn-based RPGs that actually deserve a remake. Knowing that there's a lot of classic games in this genre, of course this video won't be enough to showcase all of them in one go. So if your favorites are not here, don't worry, since this video will be the part 1 of the series. But before we go into the list, I want to introduce you to the best platform for buying games in this modern era, and it's called Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is the perfect place for you to shop in games these days. You can buy various games for your chosen platforms, whether it's PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and even Nintendo Switch, and they have the best deals as well. I mean, look at these prices. There are also numerous convenient products to enhance your gaming experience, like subscription, gift cards, and many more. So what are you waiting for? All you have to do is just click my link in the description below, start searching for your favorite games, and use the activation code on your chosen platforms. By using my link, you're not only saving tons of money, but also helping me to support this channel. Alright then, let's get back into the list. When Evolution first appeared on the Sega Dreamcast in 1999, it offered a very different flavor of turn-based role-playing compared to most of its contemporaries. Time has since buried it under the weight of more famous names, but beneath its dated visuals and simple presentation lies a core experience that would shine again if reimagined for modern audiences. At its heart, Evolution was a dungeon crawler built around randomly generated labyrinths. The game's loop was straightforward. Explore, battle, collect treasure, and return to town to advance the story. While this cycle may sound basic by today's standards, it was unusually accessible at the time. A modern remake could take this foundation and enrich it, adding greater dungeon variety, more environmental interaction, and quality of life improvements without losing the original's approachable nature. In a landscape where many remakes focus on already well-preserved classics, The Legend of Dragoon stands as a title that could benefit enormously from modern design, technology, and storytelling techniques. One of the game's most distinctive features was its addition battle system. Rather than relying solely on menu commands, attacks required timed button inputs to extend combos and increase damage. This mechanic added an element of engagement uncommon in turn-based RPGs, making even standard encounters more active. While it was a novel system, its timing windows could be unforgiving and its variety is limited. Modernizing this mechanic by adding more diverse combos, clearer feedback, and optional accessibility settings could make battles both more strategic and more approachable for new players without losing the thrill of mastery for veterans. When the Bard's Tale series first arrived in the mid to late 1980s, it was a landmark in computer RPG. Across 3 games, it offered expansive dungeon exploration, deep party customization, and a level of challenge that set a standard for the genre. The 2018 remaster successfully modernized its visuals and interface while keeping the core design intact, but it stopped short of a full-scale reimagining. A true remake could take the trilogy's strong foundation and present it in a way that meets the expectations of today's RPG audience without sacrificing the identity that made it stand out. The heart of the Bard's Tale trilogy lies in its blend of open-ended exploration and methodical turn-based combat. Each game offered large, interconnected areas filled with puzzles, traps, and secrets that rewarded patience and mapping skills. Modern players often expect environmental storytelling, more intuitive navigation, and smoother difficulty curves, all areas where a remake could enhance the experience. The Shadow Heart Trilogy remains one of the most distinctive RPG series of the PlayStation 2 era. Blending historical settings with supernatural elements, the games offered a tone and atmosphere unlike anything else at the time. They combined alternate history storytelling, dark humor, and emotionally grounded character arcs with an inventive combat system that rewarded timing and precision. Despite critical praise, the series never reached mainstream popularity, leaving it an underappreciated gem. A modern remake could give these titles the technical presentation and expanded content they deserve, introducing them to a much wider audience while preserving what made them unique. Combat in the Shadow Hearts games was built around the Judgment Ring, a timing-based mechanic that determined the accuracy and effectiveness of attacks and abilities. It added a level of engagement to turn-based battles that kept encounters active and skill-driven. A remake could expand the Judgment Ring with more customizable options, making it both more accessible to newcomers and more challenging for veterans who want mastery. Released on the PlayStation in 1999, Valkyrie Profile broke away from the traditional RPG formula in almost every respect. Developed by Tri-Ace, it combined Norse mythology with a unique side-scrolling exploration style, a time-based narrative structure, and an unorthodox battle system. These choices gave it an identity few other games have matched, but they also made it a difficult title for many players to access. Its rarity, complex mechanics, and limited re-releases have kept it from reaching the broader audience it deserves. A modern remake could preserve its originality while refining its systems, giving both longtime fans and new players the opportunity to experience it at its best. The battle system was one of the most standout features in this game. Instead of a purely menu-driven format, combat relied on time button presses mapped to each party member, allowing for coordinated combos and skill chaining. Modern technology could smooth these mechanics, add new animations, and introduce more varied enemy behaviors.
Prismatic missile!
At a time when most RPGs embraced medieval fantasy settings, EarthBound took place in a quirky, contemporary world inspired by small-town America, filtered through a distinctly Japanese lens. Players followed Ness and his friends on a journey to stop an alien invasion, but the appeal wasn't just in the destination. It was in the odd encounters, offbeat humor, and subtle emotional moments along the way. While the game has since become a cult classic, its limited availability and dated presentation mean many players have never experienced it in its intended form. A modern remake could preserve its tone while updating its accessibility, visuals, and pacing for today's audience. One of EarthBound's greatest strengths was its unique setting. Instead of swords and castles, players explored suburbs, cities, deserts, and strange dreamlike realms. Everyday locations like drugstores, arcades, burger joints sat alongside surreal landscapes and bizarre enemies. While keeping the game's bright, cartoon-like style, a new version could add depth through animated details, dynamic lighting, and smoother character animation, making its world feel even more alive. Breath of Fire 4 was a unique JRPG that combined traditional turn-based gameplay with a distinct visual style, memorable characters, and a dual protagonist narrative that set it apart from its peers. While it was praised at the time for its presentation and story depth, its late arrival in the console generation meant it was overshadowed by higher-profile releases. 2 decades later, its strengths remain clear, and with the right approach, a remake could reintroduce it to a much wider audience while addressing the limitations of its original release. The combat system was a traditional turn-based format with a few innovative twists, including character swapping during battle and the ability to combine magic spells for powerful effects. These mechanics encouraged experimentation, but they were underused due to limited encounter variety. A remake could build on these foundations with more enemy types, expanded combo possibilities, and smarter AI that pushes players to use the full range of their party's abilities. Unlike many JRPGs of its era, Skies of Arcadia thrived on exploration and discovery. Its spirit of adventure, combined with one of the most inviting worlds ever created for the genre, has helped it retain a dedicated following even decades later. Yet, despite its reputation, it has never received a full remake, and modern technology could finally allow it to realize its potential in full. Skies of Arcadia's combat system combined traditional turn-based battles with large-scale ship encounters, creating two distinct layers of strategy. Standard battles offered a mix of physical attacks, magic, and special abilities, while ship combat introduced positioning, resource management, and long-term planning. These mechanics were engaging but sometimes slowed the game's pacing due to lengthy animations and frequent random encounters. A remake could streamline battle flow, add greater enemy variety, and make ship combat more dynamic, perhaps even integrating real-time elements without sacrificing its strategic core. The King's Bounty series has always occupied a unique space in strategy gaming. As one of the earliest blends of turn-based tactical combat, role-playing progression, and exploration-driven adventure, it laid the groundwork for countless games that came after it, from Heroes of Might and Magic to modern indie tactics titles. Despite its historical significance and enduring charm, the series has never received the kind of full-scale remake treatment that could reintroduce it to a modern audience. Given the current popularity of strategic RPGs and the technology available today, the time is right to revisit and rebuild King's Bounty from the ground up. One of the series' biggest strengths is its open exploration design. Players are not just following a strict mission structure, they are free to roam large maps, uncover hidden treasures, recruit new units, and decide the order in which to tackle challenges. This style of gameplay was ahead of its time, blending the satisfaction of discovery with the pressure of resource management. A remake could expand these maps into fully realized worlds, with seamless transitions between exploration and battles, giving players the sense of being part of a living, reactive environment without losing the freedom that defines the series. Digital Devil Saga series stands as one of the most distinctive and focused narratives in the Shin Megami Tensei universe. Released on the PlayStation 2, these two games delivered a continuous, self-contained story unlike many other RPGs of the era. Together, they form a complete saga, blending turn-based combat depth with an atmosphere that's steeped in mystery. Despite their strong critical reception, both titles have remained locked on aging hardware. A modern remake would not only preserve their legacy, but also allow a new generation to experience one of Atlus' most finely crafted tales. The gameplay remains an excellent example of strategic turn-based design. Built on the press turn system familiar to SMT fans, battles reward careful exploitation of enemy weaknesses while punishing reckless play. The mantra grid mechanic also offers flexibility in character development without overwhelming complexity. In a remake, these mechanics could be refined with modern quality of life improvements like smoother menu navigation, better skill organization, and faster battle pacing. The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age was something unexpected in the PS2 era, a turn-based JRPG-style adventure set in Tolkien's world. Rather than retelling the story of the Fellowship directly, it followed an original party of characters traveling parallel to the events of the films, occasionally crossing paths with major figures and battles. For fans of Middle-earth, it offered the thrill of exploring familiar locations while experiencing a fresh perspective. For RPG players, it provided a surprisingly deep combat system inspired by Final Fantasy X. Yet, despite its unique appeal, The Third Age has never seen a re-release, let alone a remake, leaving it trapped in the PlayStation 2 and Xbox era. The game's strengths were clear: a richly atmospheric world, stunning locations faithfully adapted from Peter Jackson's films, and a battle system that blended cinematic flair with tactical depth. Players could manage party positions, unleash powerful overdrives, and customize abilities for each hero, creating a sense of strategy that set it apart from typical movie tie-ins. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 was more than just another turn-based strategy RPG. Building on the strengths of its predecessors, it delivered an ideal balance of deep strategic gameplay, beautiful world design, and accessible mechanics that made it appealing to both casual players and competitive tacticians. Over 2 decades later, it still commands an active fan base, with tournaments, fan-made expansions, and high-resolution mods keeping its legacy alive. Yet despite this enduring popularity, it has never received a true modern remake, only an HD edition that lacked the expansions and much of what made the original whole. Part of what makes Heroes 3 timeless is its blend of map-based strategy and tactical turn-based combat. Players begin with a single town and a small band of units, exploring a richly detailed map filled with resources, artifacts, enemy armies, and hidden secrets. The game's faction diversity also plays a major role in its longevity. From the disciplined castle and magical tower to the fearsome necropolis and chaotic inferno, each town offers unique units, strengths, and strategic styles. The Xenosaga Trilogy is one of the most ambitious JRPG series of its time. Released between 2002 and 2006 on the PlayStation 2, the trilogy was envisioned as a sprawling multi-part science fiction epic. However, the trilogy suffered from production constraints. The original plan for a 6-part saga was cut in half, forcing narrative compression and leaving certain arcs underdeveloped. Despite its flaws, the trilogy is remembered as a bold and distinctive work in the genre. Gameplay evolved significantly across the trilogy. Episode 1 featured a slower, methodical turn-based combat, Episode 2 experimented with more dynamic combo mechanics, and Episode 3 struck a more refined balance, delivering faster battles, streamlined systems, and some of the most satisfying encounters in the series. A remake could present the Xenosaga trilogy as it was always meant to be experienced, unified, consistent, and visually stunning. Improved pacing between gameplay and cinematics would make the story more accessible, while modern graphics could finally bring the environments, character models, and AGWS battles to life with the level of detail they deserve. When Golden Sun released on the Game Boy Advance in 2001, it quickly stood out as one of the most technically impressive and narratively ambitious RPGs for a handheld system. Over 2 decades later, the first 2 entries still hold a special place in the hearts of RPG fans, and their qualities make them perfect candidates for a modern remake. At its core, Golden Sun offered a world brimming with life and mystery. The elemental magic system called Synergy wasn't just for battles, it was a key part of exploration. Players could use spells to move boulders, create paths, reveal hidden objects, or manipulate the environment in creative ways. This made the game world feel interactive and alive, far beyond the simple traversal of many RPGs from the same era. The Jin system also further deepened the gameplay, allowing for a flexible approach to party building and combat strategy. Collecting these elemental creatures was not just rewarding, but often required clever problem-solving and thorough exploration. The Phantasy Star Tetralogy represents a time when RPGs were still defining their boundaries, and Sega dared to imagine a future where magic and technology coexisted. These games took risks in story structure, protagonist choice, and setting that still stand out decades later. While most RPGs of its era leaned heavily on medieval fantasy, this series blended high-tech space travel, alien worlds, and ancient magic. The Algol star system felt alive, with different planets offering distinct cultures, ecosystems, and threats. From the lush fields of Palma to the icy landscapes of the Azores, the games conveyed a sense of galactic scale long before open-world technology existed. Modern visuals could bring these environments to life in a way that preserves their personality, while adding atmospheric details, dynamic weather, and immersive cities. Gameplay modernization would also be essential. While groundbreaking at its time, these series can feel slow and grind-heavy by today's standards. Quality of life updates like adjustable encounter rates, streamlined menus, and modern dungeon mapping could make them more accessible without removing their core challenge. In many ways, Xenosaga feels like a game that was ahead of its time but limited by the technology and design norms of the early 90s. Its framework, like multiple protagonists, rivalries, and non-linear exploration, aligns perfectly with modern RPG sensibilities, and a remake could enhance those elements while smoothing out its more frustrating aspects. The story's premise was simple but effective. 7 warriors were chosen to seek out 7 magical runes hidden across the world. Whoever collected them all would gain immense power, and along the way, alliances and betrayals could shape the journey. This setup created a natural tension between characters, especially when former allies could become enemies depending on the player's choices. Combat in Xenosaga was turn-based, but presented with a pseudo-3D perspective that was unusual for the time. It gave battles a sense of visual depth, but the game's high difficulty often made encounters feel like a grind. A remake could preserve the tension of facing rival runeseekers while rebalancing enemy stats, adjusting difficulty scaling, and adding modern conveniences. When Final Fantasy VI first launched in 1994, it redefined what a JRPG could be. Even right now, many fans consider it not only one of the best Final Fantasy games, but one of the greatest RPGs ever made. One of the game's most remarkable strengths was its cast. Instead of focusing on a single protagonist, Final Fantasy VI presented more than a dozen playable characters, each with their own story arcs, motivations, and moments in the spotlight. Terra's struggle with identity, Celeste's redemption, Locke's devotion, Cian's grief, and even the comedic charm of characters like Sabine and Edgar formed a rich tapestry of perspectives. A remake could give each of these arcs expanded scenes, fully voiced performances, and more organic interactions between party members, allowing players to feel their bonds grow naturally throughout the journey. Chrono Trigger wasn't just another RPG. It was a landmark collaboration between some of the greatest talents in the JRPG industry. With a timeless story, innovative gameplay systems, and multiple endings, it pushed the genre forward in ways few titles have managed since. One of the defining strengths of Chrono Trigger was its seamless approach to storytelling. There were no random battles on the map, making exploration and encounters feel natural. This created a sense of immersion that was ahead of its time. In a remake, this could be enhanced with modern visuals, smoother transitions, and more dynamic enemy behaviors, while keeping the intuitive flow intact. The narrative pacing of Chrono Trigger is another reason it deserves a remake. It avoided the bloat common in many RPGs, keeping the story tight yet impactful. Major moments such as Frog's transformation, the trial sequence, or the first encounter with Lavos could be rendered with modern cinematic techniques to give them even greater weight. The Legend of Heroes series has built a reputation for slow-burn storytelling, intricate world-building, and deeply human characters. Among its many storylines, the Liberl and Crossbell arcs stand as some of the most beloved in the series. Spanning Trails in the Sky Trilogy for the Liberl arc, and Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure for the Crossbell arc, these games laid the foundation for the interconnected world that has since grown into a massive multi-generational saga. While the original releases still hold their charm, they are also products of their time, with dated visuals, limited animations, and technical constraints that a modern remake could address. Combat across both arcs was already strong, but a modern remake could refine it further without losing the series' tactical identity. Updated animations for crafts, S-crafts, and arts could give battles a more dynamic and impactful feel. Environmental effects, more varied enemy behaviors, and seamless transitions between exploration and combat could make encounters smoother while keeping the strategic depth intact. Xenogears was an ambitious blend of science fiction, psychology, theology, and human drama that aimed to push the medium beyond traditional heroes' journeys. The story of Faye and his struggle against forces that span both human and divine remains one of the most complex tales in gaming history. However, many key events, especially in the second half, were told through long stretches of text and static images, a necessity at the time due to budget and schedule constraints. A remake could fully realize these scenes with cinematic presentation, proper gameplay section, and additional chapters, allowing the story to unfold with the dramatic weight it always deserved. Gameplay in Xenogears was an inventive mix of traditional turn-based combat and combo-based martial arts, enhanced by giant mech battles in Gears. While engaging, these systems could feel uneven, with some mechanics underused and feel repetitive at times. A modern remake could refine these ideas, expanding the combo system for more depth, introducing more variety to gear combat, and integrating smoother transitions between on-foot and mech battles. Alright boys, I think that's it for today. I know that there are other turn-based RPGs that deserve a remake that I haven't mentioned yet, so how about sharing your best turn-based RPGs that probably deserve a spot in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss another great list. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Peace!